person that can accomplish anything that they want. To do this, we have to be willing to like burst through the bounds of our current ego and so forth and all the environmental pressures. We have to work on being happy and work on the development of building our spirit based on logic and wisdom. This is why earlier on the meditation tape I spent so much effort talking about pure and keen observation, seeing things exactly as they are, because that's what wisdom is, isn't it? Seeing things really the way they are, having real knowledge about something. If you want to really learn something about yourself, you have to be willing to painstakingly reflect on yourself, really see yourself as from an outside point of view almost, step outside of yourself, and really be very honest with yourself. And there's no one else listening, so you can do that. Be very honest with yourself and see exactly what your problems are, what you're reacting to, and where you want to go. And work on developing that. This is why in self-help programs quite often we'll see where they talk about role modeling, where you will like see yourself the way you want to, maybe even paint a picture of yourself on the wall, well-dressed, successful. They want you to start visualizing, the way that you see yourself. And what happens is your mind just starts doing that. And they're correct. When you start putting force into that vision of yourself, you'll start acting that way. You'll start spending more time developing habits that lead you into thinking and acting that way. You'll change the way you dress, the way you talk and act. You develop a new self. The important thing is, as you do this, that you don't want to develop a new Frankenstein either. You want to make sure that you develop the correct self, the real you. Not some fantasy that someone thinks that you should be like, and not your version of Cary Grant or whoever it may be, or Marilyn Monroe or whatever. You want to develop yourself to its maximum potential. But you have control over who yourself is. So that's where the honesty and integrity comes in with yourself. When you add new things to your personality, make sure you're adding things that are correct and right for you, not someone else's idea of what they think you should be. And when you do that, bring in new information that you're going to add to yourself and be honest with it. Okay? That's where keen observation comes in. Really observe information, even the things that you're hearing from me. For every 10 things I may say, one of them may be registered good for you. Some of the others may be of no use. Some of them may not either make sense or might even seem incorrect to you at this time based on how you're thinking. But if there are among the things I'm saying, if there are things that inspire and stimulate you, if there's information among here that you need at the moment that's good for you on your path, that's great. Make sure you understand it clearly. Don't take my word for it. Don't take what I say for granted. Don't even assume that I'm actually right about everything. I may not be. It's important that you go out and try it for yourself. Test out ideas. See them for exactly what they are. Just because Billy believed it and I learned it and it makes sense to me, I'm speaking now from my experiences and how I view things. You want to be able to do the same for yourself. So don't ever just accept things, just because someone tells you. Find your own truth. Make your own experiences. Listen and read to material and dissect it like a doctor under a microscope. Examine it carefully, listen to every word and see what it really means to you, because it's your subconscious, it's your psyche that you're affecting when you allow information to come in. Again, this goes back to our books and movies and films and things in our environment. We affect people greatly when we put all sorts of trash on the screen and in our papers and our magazines and so forth. You can't leave pictures of violence and people being naked and sick and so forth out there for people to see without it having some effect. The well-balanced person can cope with it fairly well and just kind of shrugs it off. The uninitiated, the people who are out of balance with problems, the children who are still have these virgin minds that are absorbing things like sponges, they take it all in, and it definitely has an effect on them. And all of these things serve to form who we are, and we have to deal with this information. This is definitely why eventually in our society we're going to reach the point where we take that element of trash out of our society, where violences in porn and so forth are no longer shown because they do affect people. So we have to get that out of our society. Kind of an interesting paradox I just thought of that's kind of funny is that around the world there are people like Billy and other people, gurus, masters and so forth, who are what we call the thinkers of our world. These are people that are sitting around and they're contemplating existence. They're working on new ideas. They're working on their spirituality. They're trying to solve the mysteries of life. And they're delving into their spirit. They're using the spirit to try to build new self. They're providing new explanations and inspirations, like I hope that I am, to people. And quite often, though, the mainstream world out there thinks that we're a little off of it, or that we're a little nuts. Mostly that's because of numbers. There's more of them than there are of us. So they tend to look at us like we're the oddballs, when in fact it's just the other way around, isn't it? The people that are striving for truth in life, whether they're hitting the mark or not, they're trying. You know, the ones that are striving to try to make themselves better, that they're trying to improve the quality of their life. If you take this path yourself, or if you're currently working on it, have the strength of conviction and knowing that you're right for yourself, that you're on your own path of evolution, you're discovering things for yourself, and it's important to you, irregardless of what somebody else thinks out there, especially in the American society where, numbers are not necessarily right. Might is not right, as they say in the military at any rate. It is not necessarily so. So have the strength of conviction to go out there and be a thinker and go look for things. Too many people depend on other sources of information for their might, for their right. This is what I have against cults and beliefs and formula groups and some kinds of religions and so forth, where people give up. They don't search for any new knowledge of their own. They accept the idea that some other higher source or outside source is going to take care of all their problems for them. They are not responsible for themselves. And that's where I have trouble going along with these ideas, because I'm a firm believer that we must all be responsible for ourselves and our own growth. We have to learn to take care of our own problems. If we did that, we would have fewer problems in our country, in our cities, communities, and in our own minds. So what life is all about is learning responsibility for ourselves and the world that we live in. We can't expect some other, person, belief, God, or whatever it's going to be to take care of these things for us, because they don't. All too often also I find that people who think like that, who are expecting someone else to take care of those things for them, they just don't want to admit that they're responsible for who they are. They look at their life and they're not that happy with it, whatever, and they like to blame it on somebody else. Like, how often have you heard someone say that, that's just the way that God wanted it. I guess it just didn't work out, but that's what He wanted. It didn't have anything to do with their effort. Of course not. They have to blame it on somebody else. And I think that's like a problem in our society. So even though I give everybody space to grow on their own and believe whatever you want, that's my opinion on that, I think it's unfortunate when we blame our own problems on any outside influence. It's not correct. I don't believe it's the way to go. We've got to start taking responsibility for ourselves. Not only is it wrong, it causes damage to your psyche. Our psyche now is the storehouse of our feelings and thinkings. I think it leads to a destructive thinking process. When we're not being responsible for ourselves, and we're thinking someone else is going to take care of our feelings and our future and our destiny for us, that's incorrect. Also, it stymies spiritual growth. You don't contribute anything to your own spiritual growth, and you're certainly not contributing anything to the creation. So it's important that we're responsible for ourselves and we contribute and control our own growth. The biggest defeat in life, after all, is just not being happy. And you can't be happy if life is a continuous series of defeats and failures that you're blaming on some outside influence. Not only that, it'll lead to diseases, breakdowns, closed-mindedness, any number of things. Well, I see we're running out of tape, so hit the old fast-forward button or just let it play out, and I'll see you on the next tape, okay?